NPR has had it with Elon Musk's shenanigans and has become the first major news organization to leave Twitter after billionaire Elon Musk's acquisition of the site. This comes after NPR was given the label state-affiliated media and then subsequently labeled government-funded media after some backlash. NPR claims the amended label is inaccurate and misleading, given that NPR is a private nonprofit company with editorial independence. It receives less than 1% of its $300 million annual budget from the federally funded Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
NPR's official statement reads that the site under Musk is taking action that undermine our credibility, and we are not putting our journalism on platforms that have demonstrated an interest in undermining our credibility. So, a lot of people threaten to quit Twitter and, in fact, get made fun of because they never really do. No one quits Twitter. They come back after a few minutes. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of temper tantrum.
Yeah.
I will say, however, given all the kind of dysfunction going on, the platform, to my mind, is offering less value, and we're going to talk about this a little later. But even the value is providing in terms of the disclosures and revelations regarding the previous ownership, the Twitter files. Now that's it looks like it might no longer happen because of the feud that Elon Musk and Matt Taibbi have had. So maybe it's becoming less of a curated news feed. I can understand news agencies thinking they're getting less value out of it. I understand NPR, we talked about this, being upset specifically about the state-affiliated label. The government-funded label is, sorry, it's technically accurate.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
I don't know what you want to say about it.
I think that's fine as long as it's also evenly applied. So part of the concern was that the BBC was being treated differently from NPR, was being treated differently from RT, and the metrics by which those decisions are being made were very opaque and inconsistent. Now, if BBC and all of these other channels are also being described as government-funded media, I think that would be okay. But as I understand it, NPR was being really called out in a way that felt like an ideological sort of punishment from Elon Musk, who has been very open about his opposition to left politics.
And the rules are just no longer clear. Things are changing day to day. We were told we were all going to lose our blue check marks unless you paid for it. Here was the date you had to do that by. People didn't do it. That date passed. Then your blue check mark now says, well, you subscribe to it or your legacy, making it sound like they're not getting rid of it. It's something different every day.
Yeah, and
I think it's undermining. I don't think Elon is doing a good job of establishing that, of just setting a new agenda and saying, okay, you wanted fair, transparent rules that are the same for everyone, no bias, censorship, etc. Here are the rules, abide by them. It's just something different every day. It seems to change based on his whims, his mercurial nature.
Right. There was this new tag that I know that at least POTUS had gotten it, that was supposed to be like this verification other icon that appeared next to your name. And people were saying, well, this was supposed to be the initial purpose of the verification check, which of course now Elon Musk has tried to make into a profit-generating mechanism. It isn't generating very much profit. He's losing a great deal of profit on the advertising side of things, and people are increasingly asking, what's the point of all of this? Speaking, of course, of the BBC, however, Musk was recently interviewed by a reporter from that organization and was asked about the so-called rise of hateful content on Twitter. This was just last night. Let's watch some of that conversation.
Hang on a second. You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And
then how did you see that hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What I claimed was there are many organizations that say that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my feed or not... I mean, right, and
literally
you can look at something like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK. They will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right.
This reporter perhaps apprenticed under that other British reporter who had interviewed Jordan Peterson all those years back.
Oh, I remember her.
So you're saying... and they're like, no, I never said that. I don't think that. What you're saying is it was that kind of just failure to, he didn't do his homework.
He wasn't prepared.
Came at Elon with an accusation that he absolutely could not back up. And I have to say, by the way, that of all the, we're being pretty critical of Twitter right now, of all the things people are saying about Twitter, the one seems to me to have the least validity is that there's like more hate or something. I have not noticed that and I'm a heavy user, and I have not noticed that whatsoever.
Yeah,
but.
I gotta say, and this is just anecdotal. People who are more into different sorts of communities or who have different algorithms can feel free to disagree. I also have not noticed a change in the kind of hatefulness of my feed. Generally speaking, this reporter was terrible. So to be clear, this was a Twitter Spaces. I listened to this on Twitter Spaces. I didn't watch it. And after this is an important fact because at a certain point, the interviewer literally pooped out, said, I'm out of questions. He has one of the richest men in the world sitting in front of him, someone who has been at the center of any number of scandals, any number of newsmaking events, who he never asked about the Twitter files until prompted by other people in the chat at the end of the call. But basically at a certain point said, well, I guess I'm done here. I've been beat up enough and I've embarrassed myself enough. He didn't say that, but like that was the subtext. And he just says, should I just pack up around you? Should I just pack up and leave? And now I'm seeing them on the set. Apparently he just gathered his things and left, and Elon continued the call and talked to some of his other online friends, Ian Miles Chong and some others in the chat for another 20 minutes or so. Eventually I hung up. But throughout the interview, the interviewer clearly had an agenda, which is fine. I have my critiques of the website as well. But instead of asking more pointed questions about the functionality, being able to push back when Elon gave a lot of non-answers or joke answers, he simply seems not to have the preparedness, the self-esteem, the confidence, I don't know what, to actually make this a good interview. And as soon as Elon Musk kind of understood that, he ran ramshod over this guy, and it was so cringe.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, you have to be prepared for that kind of interview. And, and I think people have criticized Elon for only talking to people who agree with him, friendly, conservative type people, alternative media type people. But there he was doing an interview with a BBC reporter.
Well, it started off pretty friendly, and the topics at the top of the call were about some of the BBC affiliation stuff, and they talked about how it was a very impromptu setup, a very impromptu interview, and it wasn't clear if maybe it was part of negotiations around how BBC was going to be handling the labeling on the app. The conversation started off relatively friendly. There were some questions about whether or not there was going to be a new CEO of Twitter. Elon Musk responded in very Elon Musk fashion, saying, well, there is a new CEO. And the reporter, because I think, again, he wasn't very prepared, seemed to be caught off guard, unsure if maybe he had just missed a news item, and said, who is this new CEO? He said, it's my dog. It's my Shiba Inu, who's in the icon, who's the new CEO. And they laughed about it. And the reporter just failed to have follow-ups. Okay, Elon Musk was going to make his corny dad jokes, but you have to have follow-ups. Elon Musk averred that he was going to step down as president of Twitter. He has not done so. When he asked who he thought would make a good replacement president of Twitter, Elon Musk said, well, what do you think? And the report says, well, I'm not the one who's in the position to make that sort of decision, but he never ultimately nailed him down, followed up, spoke to the fact that on his own website, he did a poll asking if he should step down, and his own followers ostensibly told him the answer was yes. There was so much there. To have never asked about the Twitter files. Yeah. The biggest story of the moment, the guy who says he bought the app for First Amendment reasons, having this breakdown with his own journalists where Matt Taibbi has left the app to not bring up any questions about the Mehdi Hassan interview and whether or not, there was a question about whether he was somewhat hypocritical and how he dealt with speech issues in other countries. And Elon Musk very straightforwardly said, in other countries, I'm going to follow their laws, speech be damned, which I think is an honest moment, but something that he didn't interrogate at all, and which I think most of the fans of Elon Musk aren't going to really pick up from this interview or say anything about. Yeah. But I do strongly recommend that people watch the whole thing.
That, by the way, is not unique, honestly, to Elon Musk.
No,
That's something all tech companies have had to grapple with as they try to get into companies like India, China, etc.
What's unique is that Elon Musk has represented himself as something different than someone who just follows the rules of the country they're in. That is Elon Musk, who has portrayed himself as having different sorts of standards.
Well, I don't think it necessarily violates a commitment to free speech to say that, as long as you establish that, like, look, these rules are not ideal, and I don't support them, but I think it's better for the people. What maximizes speech? Is it to refuse to do business, to like not negotiate, refuse to make your product available in a repressive country unless you can offer it under, the full terms of, I think that's a hard question. Like, are the people of China better off without Google at all? Google should say, no, we're a free speech American company. They want us to censor information about Winnie the Pooh. We refuse to do it. No Google in China. I understand that that's a very principled stance. Is that better for anyone?
I think those are good questions. They're questions this journalist did not ask. There was a question about whether he supported a TikTok ban. Elon seemed to have never considered it at all. He said, he was reasoning on the spot. Well, I guess maybe TikTok is a competitor. I don't really use TikTok, so it would be good for me if TikTok were banned. But on the other hand, I suppose I'm against banning of things, so I guess I would say no, TikTok shouldn't be banned. It was all over the place. Watch it for yourselves, guys. Let us know what you think.
You know who should be the new CEO of Twitter?
Who?
Jack Dorsey. Those were the good old days. More Rising after this.